Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. This program is being filmed on Wednesday, March the 6th in the beautiful Memorial Arena in Victoria. I'd like to thank the volunteer staff and Shaw staff who make it all possible. The first part of the program is always the Walter and Jack show, and we're going to do that again. So I want to start off by saying, and I've got to read this because I'm not very good at memorizing things, but the biggest problem in Canada now, I think, is that we don't have much democracy anymore. And the biggest solution is more democracy. And I think that's beginning to happen. The word democracy is springing up all over the place. 10 years ago you never heard it, 5 years ago a little bit, but now in 2013 the word is everywhere. I remember at the beginning of the Occupy movement, that's the word I heard more than anything else, was democracy. So I think what we need in Canada right now is a real discussion about democracy. And I'd like to see the media leading the way, because they're really the only way we have of interrelating with each other. But the media seems to be the one place that won't even say the word democracy. So I guess it's up to all of us to approach our media and approach our politicians, who also have a lot of power in this, and say, let's start talking about democracy. The system we have now doesn't seem to be working. There's so many growing problems. The environment, the economy, our society, all together. And I really think that democracy just means that we citizens will have more of a voice in what's going on. And I really think that's where we have to go. So that's my rant. And Walter, how about you?
Well, democracy, you know, we should just let the show flow from those comments, because, I mean, for me, I'm an issue-oriented person, and I want to see changes made on issues. And one of the things that always seems to be an impediment to moving an issue along is the lack of fair process, which is, you know, democracy, like having a decision made based upon what the majority, if not the consensus of the community, is asking for. So I think we should never lose sight of those desires for fairness and for openness and for sharing ideas and entering into conversations, not always adversarially, but always just exploring what is the best for our community and for our society.
Yeah, we need to be informed about the important issues, and we need to be asked on those issues, which way is the country supposed to go? I'm quite willing to lose on issues. I mean, there's lots of things I believe in, but if the majority of Canadians want to go in a different direction, I'm willing to go along with that. I'm just so tired of the country being run by this small elite at the top who have led us to the edge of destruction and beyond, and the rest of us don't have a voice.
Well, if you do the math, you know, the Conservatives only won 25% of the vote of the eligible voters.
But I'm not talking about the Conservatives. I'm talking about the corporations who run the country, not
I'm just giving you an example of one aspect of the problem. And that is that with this system that we have right now, with first past the post and party politics as they are, very small factions of society with a special interest can take over and run the government. Right now, that's being done by a corporate agenda and reflected in Stephen Harper's ideology.
And you know, not only do the Conservatives form a majority government with less than 40% of the vote, but then Stephen Harper himself alone has virtually all of the power of our government concentrated into his hands. There is simply the power of our Prime Minister is literally unparalleled outside of a dictatorship.
Well, we've experienced that under the Gordon Campbell regime. You know, the Gordon Campbell regime very, very autocratic. Was transferred to Christy Clark.
And it's very dangerous for us.
Oh, absolutely. There are some very, very serious issues. And I think it does, you know, it segs quite well into the issue that I'm going to be talking about today, and you're going to be interviewing Tammy Jeske about, and that's the issue about whether or not the Victoria School Board should use wireless internet technology in classrooms.
Okay, so the issue is, should school district number 61, which is
That's correct.
Greater Victoria, use
Wi-Fi in classrooms and in the school.
Okay, so are they already, or?
They have used a certain amount of it, but about a couple of years ago, it's hard to get the dates down. I think it started in 2010. There was concerns raised by the public that this is dangerous technology. Now, if you look at the evidence that to support their claims, it's pretty overwhelming. Wireless internet technology, especially with the type of routers they want to use in schools, can have a profoundly negative health effect on people, and particularly children. Enough evidence, certainly, to take precautions, enough evidence not to use the technology when it's not necessary. But when it comes down to fair process, well, we seem to be lacking it in Victoria. And what my major concern was is when the school board decided, okay, we're going to hold some hearings and bring some people in to discuss the issue whether or not Wi-Fi is safe. And they proceeded with appointing their secretary-treasurer as the chairman of the committee that was going to, in an unbiased way, look at this evidence. But at the very same time, he was appointed to as a director of a organization that supplied wireless internet technology to schools.
Okay, stop right there. And just repeat it, because even though I've heard it a few times before, just say it one more time.
Okay, so the organization that the secretary-treasurer was appointed to.
So, but the school board appointed their secretary-treasurer to head up the committee.
Yeah, act as the chairman.
Of the committee that was looking into, is Wi-Fi safe?
That's correct.
Wi-Fi safe, okay. And then that secretary-treasurer was also...
He was the director of an organization called ERAC, E-R-A-C, Educational Resource Acquisition Consortium, if you want to know what it all means. But basically, it's an organization that is there to find all different types of technology for the schools. So we have a very direct conflict of interest in a moral and ethical fashion, where this guy was on the board of an outfit that really had in their interest to supply Wi-Fi technology to classrooms, and at the same time he was sitting as the chairman of this committee. Now the thing is,
the committee to look into the safety of
Wi-Fi. Now the thing is, you have to remember is that this chairman was very belligerent towards the people that were coming in and making presentations. It was the most shameful hearings I've ever seen.
Well,
the
that's
Enbridge
saying a lot, 'cause there's been
the
some
Enbridge
shameful
pipeline
hearings.
thing was very polite compared to this. He shut people down. He wouldn't allow expert witnesses. It was a very, very troubling thing to watch. And also, I've been writing to this company and to the school board asking if, in fact, he was receiving payment from both at the same time. And it appears that at one point in time that he was, but we can't confirm that absolutely without the absolute confirmation from the school board, which to this point refused to answer, by the way. They're not giving us a direct answer
but
whether or not.
The question is simple: was he being paid by both sides at some point in time?
Now,
Not
verbally, I have from Iraq that he was receiving money, and an email from the school board saying that he was employed by them at the same time. But they won't answer the question whether or not he was receiving money. The important thing to remember is, according to the legal definition of conflict of interest, it's only a conflict of interest if it's money involved. Now, it appears that there has been money involved, and we're trying to get to the bottom of that. And this is very, very important.
Still, I mean, the other question is, should somebody who is involved in a company that's I don't know if he's even getting paid for that, but he's involved.
He is now.
Okay,
He has
but
been
wasn't
hired as a
then.
full-time employee.
But at that time he wasn't. But
No,
now he is. Okay.
but one could imagine that he knew where he was headed.
Yes.
So when he
So
retired,
he was a director of a business who was interested in selling Wi-Fi technology to the schools.
Yeah.
And at the same time, our school board made him the chairman of the group.
Well, you have to realize, Jack,
Looking
that the
into
whole
Wi-Fi
Wi-Fi
safety.
issue is all ideologically driven. It's coming from the Ministry of Education, but it's a corporate agenda, and they've just bought completely into it. By the way, wireless internet technology has never been shown to be helpful in education. It has no benefits whatsoever in a technical sense. It's a very weak system. It doesn't supply data very well. It crashes often. There's a whole lot of problems with it, except for some people make a whole heck of a lot of money from supplying this technology to schools. And the shameful thing is that the school, I believe the staff of School District 61 and the Ministry of Education are bent. They want to do it so badly that they're willing to do these sort of things and treat the public so poorly. And it's very, very unfair. Hasn't not been a fair process. And in the last elections...
Why would our school board run a not fair process? I mean, has the rot kind of gone that far down into that even the school boards are...
Well, let me just point out another thing here is that since this whole thing has been coming down, they've had election at the school board and for trustees. The 3 new trustees that were elected all were against Wi-Fi, and all the people, the main proponents of Wi-Fi, have now dropped down very low on the list of votes. They're very close to being voted out. So it's obvious it's very unpopular with the public.
Now, I think, to me, the fundamental issue is, and I think to you also, safety. And, I mean, the evidence is clear that Wi-Fi is not safe. Yes, we've all got it in our homes, we've all got it in our workplaces, we've all got it all around us all the time, but the evidence is clear that it's not safe. I mean, that's just the way it is. Too bad. But it doesn't seem to matter, because the people running the show say, carry on using it as much as you want. You don't have to warn people. You can put it everywhere. The more the merrier. I mean, there's no end to it.
I'll give you the example of how wild it's gotten. In Simcoe County in Ontario, when they put Wi-Fi into the schools, a whole lot of kids started complaining about health issues, including their hearts going into tachycardia, irregular heartbeats or fast heartbeats. Instead of taking the Wi-Fi out of these schools, the Simcoe County School Board installed a defibrillator in all 14 schools. So instead of doing the logical thing, Jack, of saying maybe this is not good for the kids, let's just take it out, they put defibrillators in. And this is what we're dealing with, my man. This is what we're dealing with, the Victoria School Board. No amount of facts are going to sway them. They're bent on doing it. We have to stop them. This is the only thing we can do is try to stop them.
So how do we stop them?
Well, you're going to be talking to Tammy Jeske soon, and she's certainly spreading the word very well. And we just have to get the word out to the public that this is just simply unsafe, simply not taking precautions with the children's health and the staff.
And all of us. I mean, wireless is everywhere.
Well, in this case, it's inside these schools.
Inside schools,
And
yeah.
I think we can keep it out. Now, by the way, in Saanich...
Now, do we need wireless? I mean,
No, it's not necessary.
Yeah, everything can be wired, right?
It certainly can be wired. As a matter of fact, it's superior. It's cheaper to wire the devices in. It delivers a lot more data. It's a lot stronger system. It can't be hacked as easily. There's not one single thing that you can point to wireless and say, oh, it's much better, other than the fact that they can wander around with their
What's the big push?
Jack, I know. I hope you're getting this.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing is that exactly why are they doing this? We know that they're just an ideologically driven bunch. The superintendent, starting with him,
Oh, you can go much, much higher.
You know, but,
than the
let's
superintendent.
face it, there's things going on here that the public is not finding out about. And they really and truly, it's not a fair process. And we're going to do everything we can to stop them. That's all we can do.
Okay. Shall we move on, or shall we?
I think we should mention a couple other things.
I'd like to say, and I'm sure you would too, just to say a few words about Hugo Chavez, the Prime Minister or President of Venezuela, who passed away, I think, yesterday from cancer. He had an amazing life. I think he tried to do a lot of things for the average person. That's why he is so hated by our governments here in the West. I think he tried to help the poor. There's an incredible story, maybe going back about 10 or 12 years, where the CIA and the local, the military in Venezuela overthrew Chavez, captured him, took him away into the night, and then the presidential palace, the seat of government, was surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people in Venezuela demanding his return. And the soldiers, the military, the soldiers, the ordinary soldiers turned against the generals, and they brought him back.
They brought him back.
And, it was a little bit of it was on film and showing this one general as things were going badly, kind of going like this, it doesn't look good. He had an amazing life. I think he tried to do some good stuff. I'm sure he did a lot of bad stuff too, like all the rest of us. So Hugo Chavez.
Well, Hugo Chavez, I mean, if you want to have a hero, is a pretty good model. He stood up against some very powerful forces. He did look after his people. There's no way Stephen Harper can give a lecture to Hugo Chavez about democracy. That's totally laughable. The one story I like is when Hugo Chavez, the people in the eastern United States were suffering and they couldn't afford fuel oil in their homes in the eastern United States in a particularly harsh winter. And guess who supplied them with oil? Venezuela sold them oil at a very, very cheap rate so those low-income people could have heat in their homes. This is during the Bush regime.
It's funny, we never heard that story.
No, you wouldn't hear about that, would you?
Story, would
so,
you?
I mean,
which leads us to another problem, the fact that the media is owned by the corporations, and we've got to get a free press in Canada. Here's an example of why we need a free press, and we've only got about 3 minutes left. I walked past Money Mart a while ago, and in fact I've mentioned this before, and I looked again at the sign in their window, and Money Mart charges to the people who go there, and basically the working poor are the ones who go to Money Mart, people who are just desperately in need of some money to make ends meet. There's nowhere else they can go. They are charged an annual rate of interest of 599%. I mean, those of people who have homes are paying 3% on a mortgage.
You see,
599% interest per year. They're
that's
charged.
pretty close to 600%.
Yeah, I know. And it's never mentioned. Why won't the media just inform us so maybe we can put some pressure on our governments to come up with a better system where the people at the bottom of the economic ladder are not being gouged like this? It's absolutely crazy. Of course, that's our whole system, isn't it? It's to impoverish the people and then just take you down.
That's right, to grind them. I mean, a lot of these people can't get a bank account.
Yeah.
Or they can't afford it, or they don't have the proper credentials, so they have to go to these guys to get these payday loans and everything.
My union, just the part of the union, the BCGEU, just signed an agreement where a lot of their lowest paid workers in the BCGEU are getting a pay increase of 1.5% this year and then 1.5% in about 6 or 8 months. This isn't even the rate of inflation, 1.5% and 1.5%. And I really think the leadership of the GEU and the other unions involved as well has really failed their membership, because the unions have a good case to make. And the case is, the reason the government says they have no money to pay people who are not making a living wage. We're talking thousands of union members who are not making this city's living wage, across BC. And the money that isn't there has been given to the 1% in tax cuts for the richest of the rich. So the union knows this, but they won't say it. And you have to start to wonder why.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of fear involved. They themselves have been subjected to so much pressure for so many years. There's a whole lot of reasons why the unions are not being effective. And I really think that the unions have been beaten down so much, they're desperate to hold any ground, and they really
But when they have a good argument, why don't you make your argument? I mean, imagine.
No, it's a good point.
It's a good point. And they.
Why are they not bringing it out and bringing it to the show and trying to get the public educated?
Yes,
it's a good point.
Because, I mean, it's so important to have a more egalitarian society. And I'm not just saying for union workers, for all workers, everybody. We've got this now. We've got this kind of wage gap, or not wage gap, but wealth gap. The richest have never had it better, and the poorest are living on the street. The most important thing we could do for our country in every respect is to bring it down to here. And we can do that. How much time have we got left there, Will? 1 minute? 1 minute? Walter, any last words?
Jack, I got lots of words for you. One thing that I've been covering is trying, we're very concerned about what the NDP and the Liberals are doing, collaborating to get rid of the Auditor General, and now they're collaborating to get rid of Christy Clark. And John Horgan.
Unfortunately, our minute is over.
No.
Yes, it's over. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching segment 1 of Citizens Forum.